This is an ordinance amending tax exemption procedure for ambulance-type vehicles. We will start with the roll call. Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Billings-Smith.
Present.
Ms. Blanks.
Present.
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Cortez.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Ms. Fay.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Winograd. And Mr. Zdanowicz.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau, and we'll go to, I think, our town manager for the guide, the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's public hearing is for an ordinance amending the tax exemption procedure for ambulance-type vehicles. This ordinance change was first reviewed by our Finance and Budget and Personnel Committee last month, and this evening we have Joseph Dakers, our assessor, who will give a brief presentation on the changes within the ordinance. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith, and good evening, Mr. Dakers.
Section 161-6 of our municipal code that allows for a 100% exemption on certain ambulance-type vehicles. This
That was quick. I'm not sure your mic is working, so you may have to repeat it all. But, yeah, so just don't go anywhere yet. But are there any questions for Mr. Dakers? Check your mics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, maybe just repeat it.
No.
Maybe for the record, you could just repeat, just because I don't know if anyone's watching, but if they are, we can make sure you are recorded.
right now. Good evening.
Liam is playing with the buttons here, and I think that's what happened, not me. I'm gonna blame.
Testing.
Sorry. It's like where we have a lot of movies being filmed now
Okay.
in town. Here we go.
Does it look like Liam wants that? Okay. I'm good.
We were waiting for Ronnie. Now she's here. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Cantor and members of the West Hartford Town Council. I'm Joseph Dakers, the Director of Assessments for the Town of West Hartford. I'm here to speak to the request to amend Article 4, subsection 161-6 of our municipal code that allows for a 100% tax exemption on certain ambulance-type vehicles. This request merely increases the time frame allowed from 30 days to 120 days after the vehicle is purchased, allowing more time for the modifications to be completed. This concludes my comments, Madam Mayor.
For the third time. Thank you very much for your patience. All right, again, questions. Mr. Winograd.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just if you could clarify who exactly this is for, I had been confused by that when I first heard about this. It doesn't apply to ambulance companies.
Yeah, this is not for profit ambulance companies. This is for nonprofit ambulance companies are already exempted. This is specifically for individuals that have, in most of the cases I've seen, severe disabilities. And these adaptations could mean putting in a false floor in the vehicle, a ramp, or lift, or some kind of brake so the wheelchair won't move around in there. And they have hand controls to govern or to handle the braking and the acceleration of the vehicle.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Ms. Blanks?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And so my question is, has there been something that occurred in the past that would require this increase in the days after the purchase? Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, through you, Mayor Cantor. Thank you. That's a good question. We have had, in my tenure here, which is almost 20 years, about 3 events that I could recall. I suspect there may have been others. And essentially, the applicant has a very short turnaround time to get these modifications made. Oftentimes, they have to send the vehicles away out of state to get this work done, and for them to meet the 30-day time frame is challenging. I actually just had one this week. I take it back, that was last week, and I think, I don't want to mention names, but I think the council is aware of the West Hartford resident. They reside on Burnham Drive, and they have several children that require a lot of intensive care. And so they just got a new vehicle. They were on the program before, but they had missed the filing date for this vehicle. So even with the adjustments, they're going to miss out on the current grant this year. So we do have them occasionally.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Any other questions? Mr. Cortez?
So now we're increasing it to 120 days, but with everything going on with supply issues that we're having across the country, do you think that that we will run into the problems with them not being able to finish it in the 120-day period?
I don't have any empirical data on that. The only thing I can speak to is our experience with where we are now. That certainly is a possibility if the vehicles have to be shipped out of state. That could stall the process. We don't have a lot of leeway in terms of the statute that enables this local option. So the guidelines are pretty much set out in state statutes, and we've just adopted the enabling legislation for local use.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Mr. Stanowitz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was actually going to go on the record by not commenting, but I can't do that. So you kind of alluded to my question. There's no leeway or provision for you with your particular title if it came in 125 days or 132, you don't have the authority to grant that, even though, to Councilors' example where maybe COVID and supplies aren't. Yep. And if that were the case, we adopted the state, is there a way that we could adopt our own provision so that you had the authority to do that?
Well, we do have that latitude under the state statutes, which is why, through you, Madam Mayor, I'm here tonight, because we work to extend the days from 30 days to 120 days. This made sense to us, given the challenges that we've already had, and I certainly didn't consider the issues of supply chain. This really started last July, actually, this process. And we don't have any other leeway other than what the statute tells us to do. But if we decided sometime down the road to amend this ordinance again, I would think that we have the ability to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Zdanowitz, are you? Okay. Thank you. All right. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. Mr. Dakers, in some of the documentation that we received, you said there's approximately about 20 vehicles in the town of West Hartford with a total assessed value of approximately $162,400. Is that correct?
So you, Madam Mayor, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, so the total amount of estimated tax revenue for all 20 vehicles that would be lost would be approximately $6,700?
Yes, and that was a projected amount based upon a implied mill rate that we did not have at the time.
So I think you would concur that the impact to our budget is basically de minimis, and I think that the greater social good that we're accomplishing by those in a situation like this
Yes,
is
sir.
well offset by adopting this resolution.
Yes, sir.
This ordinance amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Anything further? Okay, do we have any, I don't think there's anyone in the audience that has signed up, but I think we need to. Okay, and then you have to give it to
Madam
us.
Mayor, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this public hearing? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. The public hearing is closed. And we will start, if you're ready. It's 7:20, yeah, okay. Oh, it is? Shoot. I don't have my, okay.
708.
Well, all the retakes eventually got on time.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
You did yell at me, so. Man,
What is it, the highway, was it closed? The letterhead? That's great, thanks, Joe.
I got it, yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, she did, and then she said, I'm going to go. Testing, so this works. Okay, we're good.
So we will call the 7:15 public hearing to order. This is an application filed on behalf of Prospect Plaza Improvements, LLC, owner of 245 Prospect Avenue, Special Development District Number 11, more commonly known as Prospect Plaza. The stated purpose of the application is to request modification to the existing conditions of approval of the SDD in order to remove restrictions on current uses and permit all uses allowed in the underlying zoning district for the parcel. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau?
Ms. Billings-Smith?
Present.
Ms. Blanks?
Present.
Ms. Cantor?
Here.
Mr. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Davidoff?
Here.
Ms. Fay?
Present.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd? And Mr. Zdanowitz?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. LeBreau. And we will begin with a presentation from the applicant.
Mayor Cantor, Sorry. Good evening, Mayor Cantor, members of the council. Thank you for entertaining us tonight. My name is Carrie Olson. I represent Prospect Plaza Improvements, LLC, and DLC Management in this application for amendment to the existing SDD number 11, which is the zone that overlays the Prospect Plaza property. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, located at the northwest corner of Kane and Prospect, visible from the highway. With me tonight is Greg Oceans and his colleague Jack O'Brien. Greg is the Vice President of Development for DLC Management. They manage the property, and Jack O'Brien, his associate, assists in that endeavor. So we're here tonight to request that you amend the conditions of the original SDD number 11 to allow all of the uses currently permitted in the underlying BG zone for this property. This request has been approved unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission, finding that it is consistent with your plan of conservation and development. It was also unanimously recommended for approval by Design Review. Regional Council of Governments had no concerns from a regional standpoint, and your Director of Development, Mr. DeMay, expressed no concerns either. We've also provided, and should be in the record, our outreach letter, where we sent a letter to all abutters indicating what our intention was. I believe Mr. Oceans received one phone call from the owner of the condo association that abuts the property, just looking for clarification, but with no objection. So by way of background, this SDD was created in 1966. At that time, it was an industrial zone, and the council at that time amended or adopted the SDD number 11 to allow for, actually at that time, a grocery store. Over the years, this council has amended that SDD on repeated occasions, allowing for new uses like a bank with drive-through, obviously the retail plaza that's there, and a number of other uses. You've also approved a number of facade improvements and other site improvements. Most recently, a pretty significant facade improvement, which was done in 2015, and which again evidences that the owner of the property is really committed to the success of this plaza. So that really leads me to the main reason that we're asking for this amendment. It's become difficult for Prospect Plaza to market the property to potential tenants because of the condition that any use currently has to be approved by this council. What that does is it adds a layer of uncertainty and cost when trying to attract new businesses to the plaza. Make no mistake, the amendment that we are requesting will not in any way take away your authority to oversee the development of the site generally. Facade improvements, landscaping, parking, any other site improvements, we would still have to come to the council for approval. But at least knowing what uses were permitted would give a level of comfort to the property owner and any potential tenant before they start investing in the cost to come before you for further approvals. Again, this is consistent with good planning. It's consistent with what you have done at other properties. I note that SDD, I believe it's 103, was recently amended to remove a similar condition. And it's also the way that all of the major retail centers in the town have been treated. In other words, you look at the underlying zone as the basis, the building blocks upon which the SDD is then built. Just again, for the record, the purpose of the Special Development District, we're consistent with that, and I'm paraphrasing slightly. The purpose of the SDDs under your current regulations are to permit and encourage variety and flexibility in land development that will be in harmony with the objectives of the comprehensive plan for the town's development, which may require changes in the regular standards applying to the permitted uses of land in the zoning district in which it is located. So as you can see, this very old condition from 1966 really is not consistent with your current planning objectives. And the SDD actually contemplates that the Special Development District will build upon the underlying uses in the zone. I would also just want to hit upon your plan of conservation and development, and that, again, as Planning and Zoning found, we are consistent with it. One of your economic development goals, according to your POCD, is to promote growth and retention of existing businesses and development of new business opportunities to strengthen the community's tax base in an innovative manner while preserving and protecting the residential character of the surrounding neighborhoods. Again, at this time, we're not asking to change anything at the plaza, only to allow the underlying uses that they be permitted. Basically, well, I shouldn't say as of right, because we obviously would have to come back to you for any kind of site improvements, et cetera. Another goal of your POCD is to ensure that residents have convenient access to goods and services, and that there are employment and entrepreneurial opportunities for residents and non-residents, and that the town is not over-reliant on residential properties to support its tax base. Because this SDD more readily facilitates the ability of the owner of this property to lease it to new uses that are, again, permitted in the underlying zone, it increases access to goods and services, as well as enhancing the town's overall tax base. Nobody likes to see dark space in a plaza. And at this time, I'm going to conclude, and I'm going to ask if Greg would like to add anything.
I think I did that right. Thank you, Carrie. So just to echo what Carrie was speaking about, first I just wanted to say on behalf of DLC Management and the owners of Prospect Plaza, wanted to thank the council for hearing our application. To echo what Carrie said, amending the SDD to be consistent with the underlying zoning really goes a long way in helping our leasing team maintain the vitality of the shopping center. The retail environment's ever changing, and being able to know in advance that we have certain flexibility to put certain uses into place really goes a long way in helping us. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
And with that, unless there's questions, I again want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we will go to public participation now. I don't think there's anybody signed up. We're just checking.
No, Madam Mayor, no one has signed up to speak.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we can open it up to council. Are there any questions for the applicant? Comments, questions? Mr. Cortez.
I thought it was, I read through the packet and I was kind of confused of what was going on. I just seemed that, I'm like, so I have a lot of questions, basically.
Okay.
So currently, the way it stands, if they want a new tenant, it has to go kind of like a process, almost like a new business. Is that what I'm understanding right now?
Yeah, because of this condition from 1966, it's condition number 9, every new use installed at the property, even if it's allowed in the BG zone, has to come before the council. So what happens is when somebody comes to Prospect Plaza and they're considering whether to lease space there, they currently have to tell that tenant if it's a new use. And we gave you an example of the Dash Mart. You'll see that in the packet. That, to be honest with you, COVID has changed a lot of things. That proposed use is deemed to be a warehouse distribution use under your regulations. it's more like retail on the go, but the bottom line is, it's not expressly permitted currently in this SDD. So what happens is the DLC management has to say, we'd love to have you come, but we've got to tell you, we're not 100% sure you're going to be allowed in this location, even though you're allowed in the underlying zone, because we have to go to the council and make sure that it's an okay use. And again, that's aside and apart from any improvements to the property, any facade changes, signage, anything else that needs to happen, parking counts, all of that, still completely under your control. But it adds that layer, and so it makes it difficult to attract tenants who can go down the road to other BG properties within the town of West Hartford, or even across the Hartford town line, which this rests right on that line, to other commercial zones where they don't have that uncertainty. And I will say, both the Planning and Zoning Commission and Mr. DeMay both agree that this is a better administrative process, so that at least they also know when an applicant comes what to tell them. Is it permitted or is it not? And because the underlying BG zone is the building blocks, there's nothing inconsistent with allowing those uses, right? If you think it's an appropriate use for the BG zone, it should be appropriate for this location.
So I want to thank the owner for all the work, because that has been, pretty vibrant in the 90s, pretty busy. And then, once we lost ShopRite, it kind of turned, started looking sad. And, I could not understand why, empty space is there and why it's so hard. So now you sitting before me, it's pretty clear to what the issue is. And, I think, it's a step in the right direction. Thank you.
So, and that's another example. Floor and Decor, they had to come to the council to get permission for a retail use, which they couldn't guarantee was going to be approved. We certainly assumed you would probably approve it, but again, it adds a layer of cost and uncertainty that a major retailer like that, might choose to go elsewhere, so it just gives us, at this point, they can't compete for tenants the same way because of this added layer of uncertainty. They can't say for sure that a use is permitted at this site.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Thank you, Ms. May.
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. I did go through this, but are there any restrictions for what would not be allowed? I understand the need to cut through the bureaucracy, and a tenant can't wait to go through our process to know yay or nay. That makes fully good sense. But are there any restrictions on what would be allowed there in the application, or from the planning people's perspectives?
Yeah, so the restrictions would be from your zoning regulations, which has an actual use table. And so again, we would be subject only to allowing those uses that you've already determined, or your Planning and Zoning Commission has already determined, I should say, are allowable in that BG zone. So that would be the restriction. Obviously, it's not industrial. We couldn't have the industrial uses. It's not residential. We couldn't turn it into multifamily unless we came back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you for coming tonight. This is very helpful. I actually have a question for Rick. Do we have any other plazas that would have this in town?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a good question. I'd have to find out. Do you know offhand, Gina?
So, through you, Madam Mayor, I asked that same question of the town planner, Todd Dumay, and he said that there was really no other plaza that had the same restriction as did this one.
Thank you all. Great question. Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for coming tonight, and I always preface this because that's my neighborhood. So, number one, I am delighted to see that, we're trying to get this space active again, and I would agree with you. Once upon a time, it was quite active. I do even remember going all the way back to the Edwards supermarket.
which was the original approval of this SDD. Wow.
So when I was reading through the documents, because I was trying to remember, there was a supermarket in there a long time ago. What was it? And so my mother was a big fan of that. So I'm really pleased to see that we're looking to get this space active again, because you're right. It seems like when ShopRite left, it started to go down, and then COVID hit, and then it just like wiped it out. And I also would visit the plaza for the nail salon. So I guess I have a vested interest, because I am very much interested in seeing it come back.
Well, I'm
alive.
pleased to hear that. And what I can tell you, since we filed our application with you, thanks to an approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 24-hour use, there will be a Planet Fitness going in to where the hibachi used to be. So that huge amount of dark space soon
Very soon.
will be filled. And again, allowing this, so the Prospect Pizza is going to move to allow Planet Fitness to take over that space. They're going to move down a few, and we were just looking at, I don't know how many spaces are going to be left empty, but again, if you approve this, we have somebody waiting in the wings who's willing to come, and it may only be 1 or 2 dark spaces left, small dark spaces left, which they will obviously actively pursue to fill.
Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Blanks. That's great news. Any other questions? Mr. Davidoff?
You alluded to the floor and decor application. I sat on that application, and I thought it was a well-done application.
Nice.
What that application allowed us to do was to look at how that use was going to interact with the rest of the development. So we were able to add additional conditions that were very important to the council with respect to where pickups were going to be, if there was going to be bicycles, where the entrances were going to be, and things that were concerned. Was concerned about the retaining wall that affronted Prospect. I recall that pretty well. So by adopting your proposal this evening, we would no longer be able to address those things. And tonight you point out, is that correct?
I disagree. I think most of the conditions, because I read the approval too and all the minutes on the floor and decor, those were outside, many of them were outside improvements related to parking, security, where the dumpsters would go, as you pointed out. I think, was there enhanced landscaping with the floor and decor?
There was also a slight modification of the building footprint.
Building footprint, right, because you wanted to change the entrance.
That's correct.
All of that you still have control over, all of it.
And facade changes, et cetera.
You would still have control over that. The only thing that would change is they would be able to say, your use that you're proposing is allowed in this zone. We still are part of an SDD, and if you want to make these major changes, or if there's going to be a change to the parking count, or lighting, or signage, or whatever, we know full well that we have to come back and see you. But the bigger concern is that without knowing that it's a permitted use, they invest all that time and energy in applying to you for all of those other parameters without any assurance that they would even be allowed to come to the plaza at all as a permitted use. So.
All right. Can we talk about the DoorDash dash mark? Because I think that's part what precipitated tonight's hearing.
It was an example. Yep.
So that is a proposed tenant, correct?
That is a proposed tenant.
Can you discuss what their model is and how that operates?
Absolutely. So I think everybody's kind of familiar with DoorDash, which became a big hit when COVID became problematic. So the Dash Mart is sort of a spin-off of DoorDash. It's like a convenience store on the go. And what happens is individuals go online and they order sundries. It could be household products, food, snacks. Give me some other example.
Lots of baby diapers or any convenience store related item.
And so what happens is they put their order in, and then the order is put together at the DoorDash. they can either, or at the Dash Mart, excuse me, the person who orders it then either comes into the storefront and picks it up themselves, or they have a delivery service that takes it out to them. So it's something that will maintain a storefront appearance. It'd be almost like a takeout restaurant, I guess is the best way to describe it. Takeout restaurant, but for convenience, household items. And because of that, it's really a hybrid between a retail use and a distribution use. But again, it's only planning to occupy about 5,000 square feet of the plaza. It's going to have shelves that get stocked and that the employees pick items from in order to fulfill orders. And as I said, it will have a storefront appearance. People will have the ability to come and pick up their orders, or there will be independent contractors who will deliver those orders. And these Dash Marts don't just support residences, which I would point out, there's a really nice condo complex right next door that probably could benefit from having this service. And since we don't know where COVID's going, it could become really necessary. But they also support businesses. You know, if a business is out of paper towels, they can contact and have it delivered. So it really does provide, consistent with your plan of conservation and development, goods and services to support the neighboring businesses and residences. And I said, again, it's going to have a storefront appearance, so it won't be dark space anymore.
So I just want to clarify. So when somebody places their order, they're not going to be walking in as though you'd walk into a Walgreens or a CVS and walk down aisles and pick out your own things. It's a very limited pickup or spot. So it's basically a warehouse of goods that is occupying the majority of the 500 square feet. So is that correct?
I would agree with that.
So the use that currently is not permitted is the warehouse use. Is that correct?
It's actually permitted in the BG zone. Warehouse/distribution is a permitted use in the BG zone.
So that you could do this without coming here?
Well, no, because of the STD condition. That's why we're asking for that to be lifted.
Does this compete with like GoPuff or something? Or there's some
I'm
company
not
that's...
familiar.
Yes.
Okay,
this is
so
a
I'm
symbol.
familiar with that one because there's one in Newington Center in the plaza.
Okay.
And what my fear is, okay, is it looks like it's vacant. Okay, the windows are dark, they're closed, you have no idea, cars just pull up. Sometimes they pull up in the fire lane. Things that you wouldn't expect to happen in a, quote, retail plaza. Okay, so how would this be different is my question. Where will people pick up the deliveries and how will that operate?
Sure. So first of all, your concern, we share the same concern, because as owners of a retail shopping center, our retail tenants want to be part of a retail experience. Having something that looks like a vacant storefront next to them doesn't help their business. So we took care in when we evaluated in our ongoing discussion with this particular tenant in what that storefront might look like. And we actually included, I believe we included a picture of the storefront in our application. Did we, Carrie, that you can recall? We may not have in this version, but we have a rendering of the storefront.
Yeah.
That shows window decals that they've put on and an inviting storefront appearance. And to the point that you made, when people come to pick up their items from this particular tenant or prospective tenant, they walk through the front door like they would any other retail store, and they're greeted in a lobby where there's a window where they would then pick up their items. So very much there's a retail experience, but to Carrie's point, they're not necessarily going into the shelves and picking items off the shelves themselves. That's being bagged up for them to pick up. So it's not going to look like a dark vacant store. But yes, you're correct that the majority of the space would be allocated to what I would refer to more as stock room, or what you would typically see in the last portion of a retail store that wasn't sales area.
And I would just want to add to that, again, like a takeout restaurant. I mean, I've been to takeout restaurants that have no indoor seating, that literally you're going in to the counter to pick up your food or whatever. So it's very similar to that. And obviously Prospect Pizza has takeout as well. You know, they're prohibited from parking, people are prohibited from parking in the fire lane in front to pick up their pizzas. They have to find a parking space. It would be the same thing. I mean, I'm sure we could have designated parking spaces
So
potentially.
DoorDash's model is to have passenger cars coming and pick, their delivery drivers drive just ordinary cars. And their policy, and we would of course keep them to this in a lease, that they would be confined to actual customer parking spaces, not double parked in fire lanes, not pulling up in the driveway. That's not something obviously that we would think would enhance public safety any more than anyone else.
And my last question is, obviously, for it to be successful, there needs to be a large turnaround in items that are purchased, you know, constantly moving the inventory, which would also necessitate deliveries. So with respect to deliveries to this particular business, would that be subject, where would that fall into this SDD approval process? That's my question.
So like any of the retail.
So do they, I just want to, so sometimes we say deliveries can only happen between this hour and this hour because we don't want to interfere with residential life. As you know, we're putting one of the largest apartment complexes right next door to it. It's being converted, several hundred units of housing, okay? I don't think people want to hear trucks backing up at all hours of night just to satisfy a 5,000 square foot retail store. So, you know, we have to balance. So are we losing, as the council, losing that ability to sort of put the conditions necessary to keep that harmony between the residential use, which is right there, and this new retail type use?
You do have limitations on hours of operation in your current existing zoning regulations, but I'm going to let Greg address what the plan is. I mean, you can appreciate that every single tenant in that place has some delivery needs. Floor and, you know, they all require either food deliveries or merchandise deliveries or, so let me turn it over to Greg to indicate what they think the delivery.
This particular tenant doesn't utilize large trucks for their deliveries, unlike some of the other tenants at the shopping center who as a matter of fact, do. And like any retail tenant, their delivery schedule wouldn't be any different than any other retail tenant that we have elsewhere in the shopping center, with periodic deliveries happening during business hours, and that would be happening from the loading area in the rear of the store, not happening from the front of the store where it would disrupt customer access and traffic.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers and a better understanding of the concept.
Great.
Thank you for the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay. I'm going to read into the record letter dated from Town Planning and Zoning Commission dated March 9th, 2022, recommending approval of the application. Letter from Design Review Advisory Committee dated March 17th, 2022, recommending approval of the application. And letter from Capital Region Council of Governments dated March 4th, 2022, finding no apparent conflict with regional plans and/or policies or concerns of the neighboring towns. And we still have no one signed up to speak? That's correct. That's correct. All right, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this public hearing? We did have the public participation, but we are willing to entertain that again also. Okay, all right, with that, we will close the public hearing, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Move into the council meeting, and we can do that now? All right. Okay. Thank you. We are calling the March 22nd, 7:30 Town Council meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's like bumper cars with these chairs.
I know it.
All right, roll call, Ms. LeBrun.
Ms. Billings-Smith.
Present.
Ms. Blanks.
Present.
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Cortez.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Ms. Fay.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Winograd. And Mr. Zdanowitz.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. This is the public forum section of our town council meeting. Any resident or taxpayer of the town may address the council regarding any item on the agenda, which is not otherwise subject to a public hearing. There's no.
Madam Mayor, no one has signed up.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to? And seeing only one, we're going to move on. Number 4, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move that we place items 5A, 5B, 7B, 7C, and 7D on the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any objection? Okay, the items are placed on the consent calendar. And then, Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, Madam Mayor, item 6, we move that item.
No, just adoption of the consent.
Yeah, adoption of the, Madam Mayor, I move for adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any objections? Okay, the consent calendar is adopted. Now we go to number 6, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move approval with conditions of the application filed on behalf of Prospect Plaza Improvements LLC, owner of 245 Prospect Avenue, Special Development District Number 11, more commonly known as Prospect Plaza. The stated purpose of this application is to request for modifications to the existing conditions of the approval of the STD in order to remove restrictions on current uses and permit all uses allowed in the underlying zoning district to the parcel.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and thank you. This was the subject of a public hearing right before this town council meeting began. And this is seems to make a lot of sense. And it is I think something that is really important for us to act on. I appreciate the applicant's presentation. We had Carrie Olson, Greg Oceans, and I know Jack O'Brien is in the audience as DLC management, and appreciate your investment in the town and bringing this to our attention and action. Again, this did receive support from our fellow organizations, CROG, DRAC, and TPZ, and it does seem to be consistent with all of our other commercial plazas in throughout the town, that it conforms to the underlying zoning district, the BG zone. So any other comments or questions? Mr. Cortez.
As I stated earlier, it's exciting to see this come through, to see a once vibrant plaza come back to life. If this does get approved by the council, that's where our working class is. We got development, being built around there, and it'd be nice to see, give people opportunity of not going to the mall or going other places, and actually have, bring that shopping center back to life.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Any other comments? Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I would like to say thank you to the applicant for coming today. This is a smart idea for the town. It makes sense. We should do it. I love the fact that you guys are already looking forward with a new tenant that is modern. The DoorDash model is something that we should all get behind if you're not already doing it. Every other major tenant is doing this in some form, whether it's Whole Foods, Target, and it's something I think that we should adopt tonight and now.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Ms. Blanks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too would like to thank the applicants for coming before us this evening. And as I said, that this is one other space in our town that needs to be built up. We have so much stuff going on around town. And I'm always the big advocate for physical activity and exercise, and how wouldn't this be a welcome way of bringing this plaza back to full excitement for everybody who lives in and around that area. So thank you for coming to us tonight with the presentation. So I too am hopeful that the council will pass this or vote in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Any other comments? Ms. Fay?
Thank you, Mayor Cantor. I definitely support all businesses, especially small businesses, especially local businesses. So I also think very strongly, I believe in a level playing field. And it seems like you folks have been playing at a disadvantage by not having a complete suite of offerings to be able to offer your clients. So just as a matter of course, I don't think anybody should have a handicap. We should all be playing fairly, and I can't see any reason why this wouldn't be approved. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the applicant for indulging me in my question. Zoning for me is something I thoroughly enjoy and really do understand. And what it was really obvious is that the pandemic has changed the way that retail operates in America. And traditional retail as we knew it prior to the pandemic will no longer be the model going forward. We saw a quite significant increase in delivery service, whether it be Amazon or any other type of retailer making deliveries right to homes, and that continues to be quite prevalent. And the same thing with Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever it may be. And my kids' generation, that's what they're used to, pulling out their phone and ordering it and then showing mom and dad how to do the same thing. So I understand the model for the Dash Mart. I'm more old school. I'd like to go pick out my own products and see what they are and compare them side by side. So I'll probably not be an active participant, but a lot of people, for a variety of reasons, whether it be ease of purchase, or they have mobility issues, or they lack transportation, these are great alternatives. The reason I was asking the questions as to how this will look is we don't want a plaza to look like it's dark and there's nothing happening in there, and it purports to be a retail plaza, but nothing's really happening except for delivery people picking up either food deliveries or goods like this. So there's something to be said for going shopping. There's a socialization process. It's an activity that can be enjoyed. So I sure hope we don't lose that. You assured me that the ability of the council with respect to conditions of approval, with respect to the aesthetics of the plaza, has not been diminished. I think that's key. And what I've noticed, and I've talked to the planner about, is a lot of people believe that when they come to pick up their order, they can park wherever they want. Okay, and we saw that during the pandemic. No, you really can't, because should there be an emergency, that's a problem. But I got from your testimony this evening that you will be notifying your tenants, no, it's not okay to be parking in the fire lanes. If you wish to designate certain spots for this type of activity, that would be good. And I think people like that. They want to know where can they go to pick up their goods. Is this a permissible place to park? And in your cover letter, I think the thing that was the most telling was, I think there's about 72,000 square feet of retail space, and currently about 32% of it is vacant. And as we emerge from the pandemic, it's critical to West Hartford's future that we decrease the square footage of vacant space, because nothing sends a stronger message to people about economic vitality than empty storefronts. And we all know that if something looks empty, it leads to blight, leads to vandalism, leads to not something that's really in harmony with our neighbors. And as I pointed out during the presentation, there's going to be several hundred new potential customers within walking distance to this plaza. So it's in the best interest of this plaza to meet those needs of those people who can just walk over there and get what they need when they need it. So for all those reasons, I think that times are changing, and this is something that is forward-thinking, something that I believe will generate economic development. It's consistent with our plan of conservation and development, and I applaud you this evening for bringing this disparity between this plaza and other plazas that don't have to endure this special development district restriction or hurdle, I would say, to come here to allow to move forward. So for all those reasons, I will be supporting the petition.
Thank you, Mr. David, for your brief comments. Mr. Wagner, I appreciate it. You did a great job of summarizing everything. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you. Just a couple thoughts, and one, I actually shared a lot of the concerns that Mr. Davidoff expressed on the DoorDash model in his questioning, and frankly, I'm not entirely convinced of that model, and I'm not convinced that it's appropriate for that site. But more importantly to me is the fact that you are, and I respect, your expertise on this. And I don't feel that I in this position, or we in this position, should be the ones imposing that sort of business decision on our landlords and our developers. So, and frankly, it's been an issue I've been raising for a while on our STD process. You're the innovators. You're the ones who are looking to see what to do best for your property. And the fact that you're being restricted by something that was imposed in 1966 by predecessors of ours is a problem. And I'm thrilled to have you here to try to get rid of that problem. We've had other issues when we had the Ulta development, and we had to give them particular permission to put their model in, because when that development was established, there were rules put in that prevented sort of a list of troubles that people were afraid of at the time. We've done other, we also had issues with, people coming to us and saying we don't, in that case, they didn't want to take down a tree they had said they were going to in their special development district. They'd put proposals in to take down a tree. We gave them permission. They changed their mind during COVID and said, wait a minute, maybe we don't want to spend this extra money. We'll go with what we have. And they had to come back and hire a lawyer and come back to us to again seek permission not to cut down a tree. So I see this as one more example of us trying to cut some of this red tape. We really want good, constructive construction. We want growth in our town. We want people to come in and invest. I appreciate you doing so. And I think that we as a council need to figure out ways that we don't get in the way of that. We do certainly, and to, again, Mr. Davidoff's point, yes, I absolutely like requiring bike infrastructure and things like that. It does, the form of development is still very important to us, but some of these details just shouldn't be debated here. And debating, again, the model of DoorDash is not what we were elected to do. So I thank you for coming forward. I thank you for looking ahead to not just one particular tenant, but looking for the next one and the one after that, and so that you can bring those in without having to come to us. We'll miss you. It's okay. We'd like having you come, but better not to have to do this, not to have to spend the money, and be able to put the money into investment. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. And honestly, I knew I had to say something, otherwise Mr. Davidoff wouldn't, it wasn't fair. No, those were really, really valid points. Both of you made very good points. So we don't need to they all need to make them. Thank you, appreciate that. Yeah. So obviously, I think we're ready to go to vote. Ms. LeBreau, we have a roll call.
Ms. Billing-Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Blanks?
Yes.
Ms. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff?
Yes.
Ms. Fay?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd?
Yes.
And Mr. Zdanowitz?
Yes.
It is unanimously approved.
Congratulations, and again, thank you for your investment in West Hartford and caring about the parcel so much and making these changes. And we look forward to a vibrant future. Appreciate it. Okay, we go to 6B, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending tax exemption procedure for ambulance-type vehicles.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, would you want to do a brief summary of this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier this evening, the council heard from our assessor, Joe Dakers, who provided a summary of the ordinance amending the tax exemption procedure for ambulance-type vehicles. We do provide a tax exemption for vehicles equipped or modified for the purpose of transporting a person with disabilities or persons who are medically incapacitated. What this ordinance does is amend the amount of time a person has to purchase this type of vehicle for requesting an exemption from 30 days to 120 days, allowing the purchaser more time to make any modifications that they need to that type of vehicle. The ordinance change was reviewed by the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee last month, and that summarizes the change, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council had prior to voting.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. I think we can't do that because we went to the public hearing, but I think we're all good. So, so we are going to, does anyone want to comment? I'll just again, great summary, Mr. Ledwith, and just say that this, I think, responds to our changing times and potential, delays in getting work done, and we're being consistent with the state statute. So that's all. Made a lot of sense. All right, I think we can, if nobody has any, we can go to roll call. Ms. LeBron.
Ms. Billing-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Zdanowitz.
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Thank you very much, Ms. LeBron, and I want to thank Mr. Dakers also for his presentation earlier. Okay, 7A, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt the resolution revising the boundaries of voting districts within West Hartford.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Dodge, would you like to give us a quick summary of why we're doing this?
I would be happy to, Madam Mayor. And we did discuss this in committee, but for the benefit of our audience, every 10 years, state and federal law requires congressional and legislative district lines to be redrawn, a process that coincides with the decennial census process. The purpose of redistricting is to establish and maintain congressional and legislative districts that are faithful to the principle of one person, one vote. In Connecticut, the responsibility for redrawing congressional and legislative district lines generally rests with the General Assembly, and this process is conducted by a bipartisan reapportionment committee that consists of members of the General Assembly who are charged with preparing the plan. Connecticut's latest decennial redistricting project began in 2021 and recently concluded following a decision by the Connecticut Supreme Court. Although the reapportionment committee was able to agree on new district lines for the state legislative districts, it was unable to agree on new lines for Connecticut's congressional districts. As a result, the Connecticut State Supreme Court was forced to intervene, and on February 10th, 2022, the Supreme Court adopted a redistricting map based on a plan that was submitted by a special master, and that plan is now final and has been submitted to the Secretary of State. The newly drawn lines will have no effect on West Hartford's congressional or state Senate boundaries. The entire town remains in the 1st Congressional District and the 5th State Senate District. It did, however, change the boundaries for House districts. Previously, West Hartford was divided among 3 House districts, the 19th, 18th, and 20th House districts. And we will now gain 2 additional state representatives in the 6th and the 15th House districts, which will be in the northeast and southeast corners of the town. Under state law, voting district lines may not be drawn in a manner that conflicts with the lines of congressional districts or Senate districts or assembly districts, and hence the need for the town to redraw its voting districts to be contiguous with the new assembly lines. And so where do you come in? Under state law, the responsibility for setting voting districts belongs exclusively to the town council. Section 9-169 of the general statutes provides that the legislative body, in our case the town council, may divide and from time to time redivide the municipality into voting districts. Historically, Madam Mayor, we have done that through the adoption of a resolution, which is what we did 10 years ago, during a much bigger project, actually, when we went from 21 districts to the current 9. And you, Madam Mayor, formed a special bipartisan committee that you charged with looking at this, and they have come up with a proposed map and set of new district lines for the town council to consider this evening. And I will allow Councilor Sweeney, if you would like to, who chaired the committee, to describe the changes that have been made to the map that are being proposed for the council this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. I just would like to thank Ms. Billing-Smith, Mr. Cortez, Mr. Zdanowitz for their participation in the committee with Mr. Sweeney as chair. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In preparation for this, I was basically going to steal all of the council's talking points that he just laid out there. So Dallas, thank you for laying that out. Dallas and his entire office was extremely helpful, especially Cynthia, in laying out this process. While we had to go through and put together a map, they then had to write the resolution that named every street. As you can see, it is a very long document, so I appreciate that work. But so taking a step back, what this process really required is for both sides of the aisle to come together and work together, and it was great to work with both Mark and Roberto about this issue. But mostly, I think the work we can say was done by the people that actually run our two parties and came together and worked together collectively, which was great. And I want to specifically call out the folks that gave the input to the council, particularly Sean Daly, Maureen Magnan, John Bailey, and Tiffany McGinnis, who really provided us the ability to come here today. So I think if you want to look at the map, you can. I just want to point out and also say thank you to Mayor Cantor for setting this up and putting together a really good format that I thought that really worked well in putting this together. I think the more difficult thing was actually just drawing this map. At some point we were using crayons, but it came together pretty well. So the big distinction in this map, as Dallas pointed out, are the new lines with us having two districts being split, with being in 1A and 1B, and then 4A and 4B. As you can see in the map, which is distinctly drawn by the state legislature, well done. 4A and 4B will be at one polling location, and 1A and 1B will also be at polling locations with separate entrances. That is to be determined by the registrars in the next process. While we assume that there are going to be similarities in the polling locations, that is for the registrar of voters to determine. And we have had communications from both Beth Sweeney and Beth Kyle on that input. And we wish them the best of luck on their next step of inputting every new street into the new system, which is going to be quite a big deal, but it is part of this process, and we appreciate the role that they are going to play in this. But in general, we are shrinking our polling locations from 9 to 8, and then we're going to have. The registrars are really going to have their work cut out in regards to making sure that 1A and 1B work well in regards to separate entrances for separate assembly votes. So specifically, we have someone here at the table who can speak to this. Adrian is actually going to be in 1A, so she will be voting in a different state for a different state representative, who is now represented by Representative Bobby Gibson. And that's kind of one of the big distinctions that we're going to have to make sure goes out. I think the other piece is the registrars are also going to have to educate voters on their new locations, which will be something that the council will obviously keep an eye on pretty closely. But we have the utmost confidence in the registrars to do that effectively. They did a great job just in recent recollection when they moved over to Charter Oak from Elmwood Community Center. They changed that location and a few other in town. So we have a history of doing this well. I think the other big distinctions are 2 and 3 have been shifted a little bit more south. And then where we had a lot of input, particularly from both sides of the aisle, was on the minor changes to Districts 7 and 6. But again, we are going to be losing one polling location in this. Again, it was a great team effort on this. Really appreciated everyone's input and really appreciated Corporation Council's help in putting this map together. And I'm not sure how you put that resolution together, but it is well done. So with that, Madam Mayor, I believe that summarizes the process. I don't know if Mark or Al want to contribute anything, or Adrian, but I generally think this was a good process.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney, and again, thank you for your work on this and doing this it was a pretty tight time frame and a tight schedule, so appreciate that very much. Any input, Mr. Cortez?
So I want to thank Mr. Sweeney for chairing this committee and for Counselor Billings and Zdanowicz being part of the process. It was easy, as far as us coming together. And it was impressive to see the two parties, the DTC and the RTC, actually come together and give input and be excited about this thing. And as Mr. Sweeney stated, the challenge is now for the registrars of voters and putting the logistics together. But for us to come together and in a positive way and move, it was, with a tight timeline, it just was super easy. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Anything else? Ms. Billings-Smith.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to thank Mr. Sweeney for his leadership in working with Mr. Cortez, and Mr. Zdanowicz was, like Mr. Cortez said, was easy. It was a tight time frame, but I want to again give a shout out to the folks who actually helped us in our committees put this mapping together, and I just thank you, Mayor Cantor, for entrusting us to get this done.
Terrific. And I do want to give an extra shout out to obviously all the support in the RTC, DTC, but also Corporation Counsel Dodge in guiding us through the process. So thank you very much. All right. With that, we can do I think just a voice vote for this, correct?
Madam Mayor, while we can technically do a voice vote for a resolution, given the historical significance of the voting district issue, I would suggest doing a roll call vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dodge. Okay, that was my gut, but roll call, Ms. LeBrun.
Ms. Billings-Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Blanks.
Yes.
Ms. Cantor.
Yes.
Mr. Cortez.
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Winograd.
Yes.
And Mr. Zdanowicz.
Yes.
It is unanimous.
Terrific. Thank you all again. All right, and we go to reports from the town manager, or of the town manager. I never know. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start our report with a reminder of upcoming meetings, and want to start by saying I thank everyone for your flexibility as we have added an additional meeting to your already busy calendar. For next week, we have our Community Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting, which is rescheduled now for Monday, the 28th at 8 a.m., and that meeting will be held virtually. Then on Tuesday, the 29th, we are adding a second budget workshop, a third overall, actually, but second in place of order. So Tuesday, the 29th at 6:30 p.m., and the topic will be focused strictly on revaluation the evening of the 29th. And that meeting will be held in person right here in the council chambers. Then on Wednesday evening, the 30th at 7 p.m., we will hold our third budget workshop where the council has invited representatives from the Board of Education to join us as guests to discuss their fiscal year 23 budget. Going out a little bit further, we have our last public hearing on the budget scheduled for Wednesday, April 6th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Any resident or taxpayer of the town who wishes to address the council during the public hearing may do so in person. A sign-up sheet will be available 1/2 hour before the meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the council. If you're unable to attend the public hearing, written comments may be submitted to comment@westhartfordct.gov no later than 4:30 p.m. on April 6, 2022, in order to be included in the public record. The subject of the email shall be town budget, and the body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address. Keeping with our budget theme, we are pleased to announce that the town of West Hartford has received the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award again this year. The award represents the town's commitment to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the entity had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. And finally, a construction update that began on Sunday night right here in the center as CNG began replacing approximately 1,400 feet of gas main on Farmington Avenue from Walden to South Main Street. The project is expected to take several weeks, with work taking place Sunday through Thursday from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. and traffic will be detoured around the work area during that time. The project is designed to help provide efficiency and resiliency on the natural gas system and meet the community's growing energy demands. CNG is working closely with its neighbors to ensure that all improvements are done effectively, efficiently, and move on as quickly as possible. So that concludes our town manager's report this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council had.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there questions for Mr. Ledwith? I didn't know if you wanted to talk about today and
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The incident, the carjacking, okay, yep. So approximately just before noon this afternoon on Oakwood Avenue, a gentleman was in the process of selling his car. A couple of folks had reached out to him to purchase that car, and they approached him on Oakwood Avenue to fulfill the transaction. While the person was talking with one of the suspects, another suspect was caused a distraction a little further away from where they were going through the transaction with the car purchase. And at that point, a gun was brandished, and someone in a BMW pulled up. A gun was brandished, and they took the individual's car and made off in the BMW as well. And our excellent police department was on the case immediately and apprehended the suspects in Manchester. So we found the car, and there are 3 total suspects. We arrested 2 of the 3 in Manchester. So excellent police work on behalf of our police department this afternoon. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And this seems to be an organized pattern that is happening in communities around, I think, the state, not just even in the Hartford area. But
Yeah, it's happened recently in Glastonbury. There was another case earlier or yesterday. I can't remember exactly what town it happened in similar circumstances. Yep.
Right. So be alert and do not enter into any agreements like that. Ms. Fay, do you have a question?
I'm sorry. Along the same lines, could you please comment on Sunday's incident as well?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Fay, through you, Madam Mayor. Hillcrest Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So on Sunday, early Monday morning, even, it might have been after midnight on Sunday, shots were fired at an apartment building on Hillcrest Avenue. We are actively pursuing that case as well. We believe there could be some involvement with an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend type of situation, and it was a drive-by type of thing. Nobody was hurt, fortunately, but certainly shots fired anywhere in town are a concern of ours. But again, our police department is actively pursuing this case right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Ledwith. Any other questions or comments? All right. So announcements. On a very positive note, sorry, Corporation Council. I forgot. I'm so sorry because he spoke. I was check. Sorry, Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to revisit the voting districts item for a moment, I did want to thank our community planning department, in particular, Dwayne Martin. In my office, we are lawyers, not map makers, and so we very much appreciate the assistance of the town planner in helping us to draw that map and come up with the legal descriptions of the new voting boundaries. Madam Mayor, I have no other formal report for this evening, and we do not require an executive session.
Thank you very much, and I am sorry about that. Any questions for Corporation Council? Okay. Seeing none, now to positive announcements. Wait, isn't that on it's 10th? Oh, that is before May. Sorry about that, yes. Number 10, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to postpone this report, a comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year of July 2020 to June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to postpone to the town council meeting on May 24th. It will be on that agenda 2022, right? Okay, all those, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, that motion to postpone has passed. And now on to announcements. And now you're all like, what? Announcements, best place to live in Connecticut. And obviously you've heard a lot about that, and we are so blessed to have WeHa.com that shares so much information with our community. But best place to live in Connecticut, that is a big deal. But this is our 5th year in a row. This is not a one-time thing that we kind of lucked into. This is really something that we are very, very proud of. They released their rankings, best places to live, again, 5th straight year in a row. Niche gives West Hartford an overall grade of A+, a ranking which is a comprehensive assessment of the overall livability of an area based on analysis of the local housing market, neighborhood diversity, public schools, walkability, health and fitness, nightlife, outdoor activities, commute times, crime, jobs, and weather. And we're working on that weather. All right. So every time my brother or sister-in-law come from California, it's not good. But anyway, medical now to transition to something really heavy. Last night, I actually, after the Best of West Hartford virtual event, which was published today, so please take a look at those Best of West Hartford awards. Unfortunately, it was interrupted with, really rude, horrible comments. But it was, I want to just thank the businesses and their commitment during these very difficult years to really, their perseverance and commitment has just really been inspirational. But from there, I joined, I went to Beth Israel Synagogue to join a benefit concert Standing with Ukraine, and it was a very well attended program. I want to thank Rabbi Berman from the Charter Oak Cultural Center and Alexander Kuzma from the Ukrainian Catholic Church for putting this spiritual program together, and it was a very musical program actually. And there was a music from a bandura, which is a Ukrainian harp actually. It's a very unique instrument from the 18th century, and it was breathtakingly beautiful. They sang the Ukrainian national anthem, and then Dr. Leon Kermites, if you don't know Dr. Leon Kermites, he was one of the first pediatric cardiologists in the area, and his life was saved when he was a young, I think maybe 7 or 8 years old, by the Ukrainian Catholic Church from the Holocaust. And 150 Jews were saved by the Ukrainian Catholic Church, and nobody was ever reported as holding any Jewish people. So it is something that is obviously that community bought into saving these lives and acting with going against, threatening their own lives and understanding the importance of their brave actions. So it is with a heavy heart that we have to do these, step in and do these programs and to keep our support and our voices raised in this really, really challenging and horrific time. So the medical supply collection for Ukraine is through RAISM, an Ukrainian nonprofit organization that's working with volunteers and partners in the U.S., Poland, and Ukraine to address the emergency medical needs of the people of Ukraine. A collection is underway for life-saving tactical medical supplies and hospital medical supplies. Drop boxes are located at the town hall and public libraries. Collection runs until this Friday, March 25th. And a list of needed medical supplies is on the homepage, westhartfordct.gov. Heat Smart, and again, our prayers and thoughts, but well beyond our actions and our upholding the democratic values that we hold so dear, and that the Ukrainian people obviously are so bravely trying to protect with their lives to protect. Heat Smart West Hartford, Town of West Hartford is excited to announce Heat Smart, an initiative aimed at helping homeowners and renters cut their energy costs while also reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The town has partnered with a local nonprofit, PACE, People Action for Clean Energy, PACE, and the West Hartford Clean Energy Commission to run the program. To learn more, please visit heatsmartct.org West Hartford. Bloomin' for Good Bouquet, West Hartford Food Pantry, was selected as the March beneficiary by Stop and Shop, located at 176 Newington Road, to receive a $1 donation for every $10.99 Bloomin' for Good Bouquet purchased. For more information, visit stopandshop.bloominforgood, and that's the number 4, good.com. Events: Divas Double or Nothing, Playhouse and Parks resident dance company, Stop Time Dance Theater, is paying homage to everyone's favorite divas, Cher, Tina, Gloria, Shania, Dolly, Whitney, and much more. With its new production, the show runs through March 27, 2022. For more information, call the box office at 860-523-5900 or visit their website. And Johnny's Jog for Charity, March 27th, kicks off the St. Patrick's Day themed run, walk, or stroll to benefit this local nonprofit. This event begins and ends at Blueback Square. Runners step off at 10:30 a.m. The event features Irish music and step dancers, clowns, leprechauns, and prizes for the best Irish garb. Mr. Sweeney, you definitely should enter. Pre-register at johnnysjog.com. And I also want to share both high schools. Conrad High School did the Footloose program, which was truly amazing, and Pops and Jazz, again, was an extraordinary show over the past 2 weekends. Is there any other announcements? Mr. Sweeney?
I just wanted to give a shout out to both of the high schools for this past winter sports year. It has been quite an amazing thing to see both sides of town just doing so remarkable. Particularly the both track and fields competed nationally up in Boston. In the New Balance Nationals, I think we had multiple All-Americans. I think that Ronnie we can all go to weha.com to see how many kids from this town became All-Americans this year. I mean, that's not a small feat at all. I can't list them all out, but it is once again just a testament to that. And then, in addition to that, the Conard hockey team made it to the state finals. Again, I think that's a record for them. And then both, again, having Conard and Hall playing the state semifinals for basketball, an amazing thing. And then Northwest going on to playing in the state finals, losing to soon to be UConn Husky, but it was just an amazing thing to see both these young athletes just doing such an amazing job for the town, and awesome to see their success. So just wanted to point that out, and just looking forward to see what spring brings.
Absolutely, and and going to the games, both Mr. Sweeney and I attended games, and the spirit was really wonderful. So it was proud to be they're supporting these student athletes. Okay, I think that's all I had. Anything else? All right, and I put everything away. So without objection, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and there's no objection. I move that we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.